officer responsible for risk management. A predecessor, if you can remember, was David Hunter, who was here for quite a very long time. And Emma's maybe a different demographic from David. And we'd like to welcome you here. Okay, now call Christine to go through the sediment and any apologies.
Thanks, Chair, and morning members. Councillor Douglas Reid.
Yeah.
Councillor Jim McMahon.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor John McFadden. No. Councillor Elaine Cowan. Here. Councillor Maureen Mackay.
Yeah. Present.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Linton.
Here.
Councillor Graham Barton.
Yeah.
Councillor Barry Douglas.
Here.
He'll be joining us.
Councillor Neil Ingram.
Here, thanks.
Councillor Claire Maitland. Here. Councillor Drew Filson.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Christine. Okay, go to item 1, which is declarations of interest. I don't think there's anything that stands out. Okay, but if you have any. Okay, and we've got a full suite of housing papers for you this morning. And to start, it's a housing management framework progress report. And
Presentation.
First of all, before we go to that, seamlessly, we've got Blair Miller that will do a wee presentation, just some of the things that we do through the housing service.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. Members, you will see I'm about to have a slideshow started. Jamie's helpfully going to do that for me, just to showcase really some of the amazing work we've collectively achieved over the past few weeks, months and years. So before this morning I pass you to colleagues to take you through their respective papers, I thought it was really important that I talk about the significance of housing, of homes in East Ayrshire, and indeed the importance of social housing and delivering this. So members, COVID-19, the pandemic, has brought the importance of housing really into sharp focus. It was everyone's safe place during that really challenging period. Homes are critical. They're a critical foundation in people's lives, and they're a primary location of care and support. Safe, secure and affordable housing is crucial in supporting people to live well, to work and to take part in community life. It's a key to underpinning positive physical and mental well-being. For most of us, home can be a place of nurture and security that provides stability and the best start in life. For others, home can be challenging and contribute to poor physical and mental health. Some may find themselves experiencing homelessness or living in insecure or poor quality housing. And others may become stranded in hospital because a more suitable place to live has not yet been found. It's therefore essential that housing is recognised as a critical factor that enables people to live well. It is a fundamental basic human right. Members, you'll hear a broad range of interdependent papers this morning, and that is by design. Our strategic approach is centred on housing, but more so, it is about delivering on the multi-dimensional and significant impacts it is having on our local place and people. We've seen positive impacts from our approach here in East Ayrshire on our local economy, in job growth and opportunity, improved community wellbeing, supporting our children and young people to thrive, and now delivering a key part in a green future through significant investment in existing and new build homes. Housing has the potential to reduce or reinforce health inequality. It exerts a substantial influence on health and wellbeing through the affordability of homes, the quality of home, and the role of home as a platform for inclusion in our community. When hearing the papers this morning, members, I hope with the recommendations you will see that we've made these recommendations through a lens of being the custodians of our tenants' rent money and the investments proposed to deliver on what our tenants have told us are important to them. I've reflected a lot on the suite of papers that you'll hear shortly, and I believe that they're structured around key themes that highlight what housing should provide for people in East Ayrshire in order to reduce inequality and address some of the most challenging local issues like child poverty. and those are members, is that everyone in East Ayrshire should have an affordable home that meets their needs. Every home in East Ayrshire should be warm, dry and energy efficient. Everyone in East Ayrshire should have a home that supports well-being through connections to a place and a community. But in considering all of our collective successes, we are also measured by the huge challenges facing us now and into the future across a range of factors like affordability, inflation, homelessness, housing need and demand, all while supporting our tenants and balanced with the necessity to continue to protect our assets. Members, the recommendations you have across the papers, I believe, deliver against these strategic objectives. And I'm now going to pass you over to Gary to take us into the first paper, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Blair, and thanks, Chair. Good morning, members and colleagues. As Blair's touched on, the work involved in bringing this particular suite of housing papers to Cabinet each year is significant, but this year it's been incredibly challenging, so I really appreciate the work and support from everyone, both across housing and housing asset services, and in particular to colleagues that are with me today in chambers to present papers. So the first paper, as Blair's highlighted, is the Housing Asset Management Framework. The HAMF approach and matrix have been used since 2016. Recommendations presented annually to Cabinet, most recently on the 23rd of November 2022. The outcome of the HAMF review informs the Council's strategic approach to managing housing assets as set out in the HIP and the SHIP, and presentation of both those papers will therefore follow this report. Members will have read the paper and have had the opportunity through various briefing sessions to engage around the key issues, so I will summarise as follows. The key aims of the paper are to update Cabinet on housing asset management framework activities, to make a number of recommendations to Cabinet around the asset management of our housing stock, and to identify the recommended rent setting position. Paragraphs 3 to 10 in the paper set out and highlight the background and approach to housing asset management along with the matrix results. Our framework follows the guidance from the Scottish Housing Regulator's recommended practice on strategic asset management, and it assesses our stock in terms of overall performance from a housing management perspective and a stock condition perspective. It identifies the stock using a RAG status, and highlighted properties are then considered by a cross-service review team. Red stock is categorised with a number of potential solutions which may include housing management actions, disposal, investment works, demolition and/or refresh. Paragraph 6 highlights our position in terms of the matrix, with 80.8% of properties being identified as green, 17.2% of properties identified as amber, and 2% or 244 properties being identified as red. Throughout the past year, some of the properties assessed as green in 2022 have migrated to an amber status, and there has also been a very small increase in properties identified as red. The primary reason for these changes is with regard to the estimated remaining life of main components identified within stock condition information. Elements moving from green to amber don't present an immediate cause for concern, but require to be reviewed and included in improvement programmes wherever appropriate. Properties identified as red status continue to be addressed through the cross-service review. Table 2 in paragraph 8 highlight how the remaining red properties are split across the 3 housing management areas. The positive impacts of the housing asset management framework include the reduction of void rent loss. So in 2016-17, we had void rent loss of £1.3 million. It is now just over £600,000 or 1.28%. And that compares with just over £700,000 in 21-22. The long-term voids have improved from the position in 2016-17 when we had 154 properties that had been void for 6 months or longer. And by comparison, at the end of the financial year 22-23, there were 19. And a rise in tenancy sustainment from 79.4% in 2016 to 88.6% in 2022. And that continues to go on the positive trend. Consultation over the past 7 years, we've engaged consistently and continually with tenants and residents, community groups, the Federation and elected members through a number of briefing and information events. Briefings in relation to the House and Asset Management Framework were delivered to elected members last week, and briefings will take place with the Federation of Tenants and Residents within the next month. Paragraphs 11 to 28 provide an update around the HAMP projects that are ongoing or had previous Cabinet approval. And in summary, St Cuthbert Street in paragraph 11 highlights that all the properties, with the exception of one flat, were sold in the open market to a developer. Paragraphs 12 to 19 highlight the current position with regards to the flatted properties at Witch Road, Dean Street and Orchard Street. And members will recall that at Cabinet last year, we committed to setting up a short life working group with local elected members to look at all the options available. Owing to the complexities and the ownership of the block, the group were keen to explore all options, including disposal, alongside that of partial demolition and significant investment in the remaining stock. The majority view of the group following this exercise was to propose partial demolition of the end blocks and display blocks at Witch Road and Orchard Street, and retain the common close access either side of the shops. Full refurbishment then are being undertaken to the remaining 12 flats above the shops at Dean Street, with enhancements made to the external areas. The indicative cost at this time for the project is £3.3 million, but members should be aware of recent volatility in tender returns. This fund will be made from housing revenue account balances, a level of £2.5 million being funded from there, and the remainder from the Housing Improvement Programme. Again, owing to the complexities within the titles and the adjoining commercial properties, full consent is required from every one of the commercial owners to allow us to progress with the works. And engagement with the commercial owners is set out in paragraphs 15 to 16. Paragraph 20 sets out the updated position with regards to Bentick Square in Galston. Buyback has been agreed with the one owner, subject to rehousing of the current occupant. And in conclusion of this, all flatted properties at 4 to 11 Bentick Square and the terraced houses at 1 to 3 Bentick Square will be demolished and the ground will be landscaped. Paragraphs 21 to 26 highlight the current position regarding Clinchard Place in Galston. Again, agreed at Cabinet in November 22. Consultation then followed with elected members in a short life working group to determine the future of the 4 blocks of flatted properties in question. As a result of this engagement, the Health and Social Care Partnership have identified the opportunity to deliver an extension to their moving on service for people with complex needs within blocks 4 to 7 and 12 to 15 Clinchard Place. The working group were also supportive of bringing back the remaining 2 blocks at 23 to 26 and 29 to 32 Clinchard Place into use for the Ukraine resettlement programme. The total indicative costs for internal and external refurbishment of the 4 blocks of flats, including landscaping and environmental works to open space areas, are £1.048 million. An application for funds was also prepared and submitted to the Scottish Government in June 2023, and confirmation was received in August 23 that the Council's submission had been successful in terms of the Ukrainian Capital Fund. A grant offer in the sum of £309,000 was received to support the works for the 2 blocks identified. This is seen as a very positive outcome for Clinchard Place. Paragraph 27 provides an update in terms of East Main Street in Darvel. Demolition works have now been undertaken and work is ongoing with regards to the gable treatment of the remaining block. The planned investment work in the remaining block in East Main Street will then be progressed as part of the Pathfinder project being delivered through HIP. And paragraph 28 updates in terms of Campbell Street, New Mills, and highlights that owing to issues with surface water drainage and solutions being sought from Scottish Water, the demolition work was delayed. Tender preparation is now underway to appoint a contractor to carry out the demolition and necessary drainage works as one package, with the costs being £294,000. Paragraphs 30 to 35 of the paper highlight the rent setting and the consultation around that. As Blair highlighted, ensuring that we strike the best balance of sustainability of our assets, address poorly performing stock, work to meet our energy efficiency ambitions, and understand the impact of the cost of living crisis has never been more difficult. But effective asset management is fundamental to the successful delivery of the Council's objectives, and to do this, we need to ensure that rents are set appropriately. Cabinet approved the delivery of new build developments at Mason Avenue and Castle Street, New Cumnock, as identified within the SHIP paper presented on the 23rd of November 2022. Given the significant financial pressures highlighted, however, the borrowing costs of circa £10 million required to deliver these developments have been excluded from the financial modelling for Proposal 1. There are a number of inflationary pressures which have impacted on the rent setting pressures and the rent setting proposals for 24-25, and these are highlighted in paragraph 32. All of this means that just to maintain our position, the shortfall which requires to be funded amounts to £3.247 million, or in percentage terms, a rise of 6.5%. As part of the rent setting strategy for 24-25, to enable the delivery of the proposed SHIP, HIP and HAMF recommendations, the intention is to split the rent increase proposals to allow tenants to help inform the decision. It is therefore proposed to undertake a comprehensive consultation period on the following options. Proposal 1, a rent increase of 6.5%, which is an average weekly increase of £5.18. The impact of this increase is shown in Table 4, and it should be noted that this option will not allow the delivery of the developments at Mason Avenue and Castle Street in New Cumnock, despite being previously approved by Cabinet. And Proposal 2 would be a rent increase of 7.5%, which would be an average increase of £5.97 per week. If this option were to be agreed, the additional rental income would be utilised to revise the proposed SHIP paper and deliver the previously approved developments at Mason Avenue and Castle Street, New Cumnock, subject to all statutory planning processes, which will include engagement with SEPA. The rent consultation with tenants is anticipated to commence from Monday the 11th of December through to Friday the 19th of January inclusive, and all tenants, as highlighted, will have the opportunity to engage and help inform the decision reached. The implications for the paper are set out in paragraphs 35 to 50. So in conclusion, the House and Asset Management Framework has been developed to ensure that East Ayrshire Council's housing stock meets not only the present but the future needs of tenants. The sustainability of tenancies is improved and best use of resources is made. It puts in place safeguards to ensure that decisions taken in terms of the future of the Council's housing stock are based on sound evidence. The framework is compliant with the Scottish Housing Regulator's guidance and supports the objectives set out in the local housing strategy. Recommendations, members, are set out in paragraph 2 of the paper, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Gary. An excellent presentation. Great to hear some of the reports of some of the work that's going on. I was up in Darvel last week, and good to saw the demolition take place in East Main Street, and that just complements the work that's already been done to the new square and the main street of Darvel, and also welcome the proposals in my own ward for Dean Street, Orchard Street. That's just completes a major bit of regeneration in the area, which I think we're all quite proud of. But so much, loads of good things happening in the way forward. Catherine too, that's been an issue for us for some time. It's good to get some resolution to that and some good housing solutions there. Colleagues, Jim, do you want to come in?
Thanks, Leader. Blair, at the outset, thank you very much for the presentation. And at the outset, it'd be worth extending my gratitude to each and every one, the housing services team that sat in the chambers this morning, and the wider workforce for that, and delivering under the circumstances, the fiscal circumstances, and the current cost of living crisis that we face. It's been really challenging. and the challenges don't go unnoticed. However, off the back of the fiscal challenges that we have, this council has delivered, and took great pride in looking at that presentation in some of the areas in the before and after images. Houses and homes are part of our community. They're not the whole community. They play a major role in our community, so because it's wider than houses and homes, and the impact in each community and how the effect and the vision and delivery of the houses will have a major impact on everybody that lives within the communities. Some fantastic work been done, and Dougie's touched on them at the back of Gary's presentation there, around about the Clinchard Place and the extension of that, obviously, for the Moving On programme is really appreciated for displaced people coming from Ukraine. Has really been crucial. But when I look at what we have delivered and what we're in social houses and Witch Road, you just it has a wow factor every time you drive down there. Bellevue Gardens, Whole House Road, and working in partnership there. The assisted livings at Quarry now, and I drive by it on a regular basis and near completion, and looking at that one with pride as well, running about Wallace Court and Kilmarnock Road in Mauchline. Bridgehouse Hill, Irvine Road, all fantastic developments. They've all been achieved off the back of housing demand and assessment. And that's what we look at. So fantastic, we recognise that, and they have major parts to play all the way through that. Gary, picking up on that statement for 2015 and 16 is vital, that we can keep people in their homes, and I'll come back to that later on as papers are presented. But fantastic figures, up to 86%. It's great, but we don't rest on our laurels. I think we're still looking to further achieve and set our standards high. If I could look and go to the proposals and run about Dean Street. Dean Street comes at a great cost and a great expense. However, looking at it, and I've looked at it in lots of days and over the past 2 or 3 weeks, it's crucial that we do that for that area. You look at the development there in Fairlily Hill Gardens all the way down through Witch Road, looking at the full area, and that is the black spot in the areas around about Dean Street, and that's widely recognised by the council. And I think that 3.3 million is not just for 12 flats. We recognise the impact that will have on the full area. So it's crucial that we get that agreement, and I'd like to think off the back of the agreement there could be maybe something they'll do done with the flats, but the shop fronts as well would be really encouraging if we could advance that. But it pretty ties up the control for us round about that area in Dean Street. And it's the wider community and the aspect, as I said at the outset, it's not just homes, it's community that this has an impact on. So that leads me on round about the impact on communities to where we currently sit with the proposals and the rent increase at 6.5 and 7.5. I touched on it earlier on there, round about where the housing needs and demand assessment sit. So for 2017, that need and demand round about the castle site in Newcombe has been there. It's been hampered in its delivery by the flood prevention measures and the SEPA restrictions on that. However, early indications would indicate that that might be able to progress now. But for me, the one in Mason Avenue would be the one that really has a big impact on Newcombe. I think there's a snapshot in time back in 2018 when I had the concerns around about the availability of that particular type of property, when we were looking for 54 people on a waiting list and no one who's available for them. Now, taking that scale and proportion and the percentage of that, and if we spread that, taking it for a wee village into some of the size of Cumnock or even size of Kilmarnock, it would be massive. It's a snapshot in time, and I know they move on to different snapshots, but in that particular time, that's why that was introduced to the SHIP programme. It's not going to change for me as we recognise the demographics and some of the stuff we've heard about communities more recently, the demographics and younger people moving away from our smaller villages, and the demographics, the older people are still going to be there. We know that for every £1 that we spend in housing, that has a benefit of £4 in health and social care. So for me, it's crucial at this time, not being able to deliver this, and both sites within that 5 to 10 year programme is going to have major impacts. I know and I fully acknowledge the impact that any rent increase would have in our constituents. But to be able to deliver and save in the longer term, especially and round about the New Cumnock area, I think it's crucial for me that we do deliver on New Cumnock. And for me, that proposal 2 would be where I would be sitting on this one, fully recognising again the impact that this could have on the cost of living crisis. However, as says, we're the most affected during that increase. We know that there'll be assistance available, whether that's through tenant support fund or whether that will be through housing benefit or council tax relief in some way. But I could not sit and let New Cumnock be taken out the programme and not be delivered again for another 5 to 10 years when we know the necessity of it in wee villages like New Cumnock is crucial for not just the homes, but as I said, I spoke about, if I can make reference back to Dean Street, that wider community and that community feel. Well, thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Jim. I mean, it's really within these proposals, it's not just housing proposals, or regeneration proposals, there's well-being proposals, there's climate change proposals, elements within that. There's so much we want to try and do with that money, and I think, you know, it's important as part of that regeneration that rural communities aren't left behind, and that we continue to serve both our urban and rural areas. And I think that's really, really important. I would agree with what Jim was saying. I know that the housing emergency has been discussed in the Parliament later on today, and you know, these are exceptional times as we see, you know, the numbers of people present themselves as homelessness, and you know, the increase in medical needs as the population gets older and more frail. We have to, you know, adapt our housing accordingly. So there is significant pressure on us. Can do a wee bit of hand for the government on those pressures too, and hopefully some will come at today's meeting. But we've got to put our hand to what we can influence here in East Ayrshire Direct, and I think these are a series of strong proposals, and I would agree with Jim in reference to the proposals for New Cumnock and Proposal 2. I think that's where we need to go. I concur with that. Members, comment, Maureen.
Thank you very much. So just for clarity, we have got, if I may focus just first of all on the area of the proposed rent proposal, which is at this stage, it's not us to take a decision on 6.5% or 7.5%, but it is understanding the framework that has been set for both of those proposals, that's actually what would go out to our tenants, which is in the recommendations, which I'm certainly happy to support. And genuinely, with interest as to what the response is that we get from that. And I think it's really helpful the way the implications of 6.5% and 7.5% have actually been set out. And I am making the assumption that that's the way it will be presented to the tenants within the consultation itself and the federation, so as that people just understand what the knock-on impacts and consequences are. Thank you. So again, I'm absolutely delighted about the fact that we have got an agreement in relation to Dean Street, and I welcome the comments that have been made in relation to that. I think they are absolutely accurate in relation to a significant change area in that part of Kilmarnock, and that's really important that we have found a solution. Again, I note, and I suppose there's a wee bit of concern that we have to secure the deal from all owners by the 31st of July next year. That's not a huge amount of time, so I hope that, you know, plans are ahead to make sure that we advance that as strongly as we possibly can. And I know that the early indications are that we have real interest from the people who are actually in the commercial part of that property at this moment in time. So that's positive, and just any stragglers, if they exist, obviously we just need to move ahead with that. And Leader, I agree and note that there is the declaration of a housing emergency. And again, I want to thank the team that we've got in East Ayrshire, not only for this presentation of paper, but just for their ongoing engagement, and to say it really is obvious when you engage with them that this is a whole team effort, and that what we are managing to do here within East Ayrshire is we're managing to address the issue of housing in a very holistic way, which makes us really focus on what the complex, interrelated needs of our entire and emerging communities actually are. So that's really important. I know that people are looking to us in East Ayrshire to see what it is that we are actually doing, because although we have got huge concerns about whether it's the increase of mortgage rates, which have increased by, I think it's on average, something like £190 across this cost of living crisis, and what the potential impact that that will have on demand for social housing coming down the line. Those are really worrying issues. And regrettably, what we're seeing, and I think we'll pick up on this later, is that again, we're seeing a reduction in the number of new build, not our aspiration, but the economic climate that we're in, the governmental climate that we're in. So I think we have to acknowledge that. We have to welcome that today Shelter is calling that there is an emergency housing crisis, because that's the way that we actually apply pressure to government to actually draw things to attention and to make sure that the housing bill that is coming forward actually looks at what these issues are, and we welcome that. And yes, you're right, Leader. We can only do so much here on our own in East Ayrshire, and we do look for other sources external to us to support the good work that ourselves and our team are actually doing. And on that basis, I'm very happy to support the recommendations going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Yeah, so many factors that's putting pressure on housing, as you say, in the private sector as well. Contracting has been adding to that as well. Members, any other comments? Okay, we've got recommendations there. Can we support the recommendations? Okay, and on to Larry, you introducing this one, or do you want me to do it? Thank you. Okay, we've got the Housing Investment Programme, and we've got Neil McCulloch. Neil.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the progress of the Housing Improvement Programme and to seek approval of the report recommendations set out in paragraph 2. The delivery of the Housing Investment Programme continues to face ongoing challenges in the availability of resources and procurement of contracts due to economic uncertainty and the volatility within the construction market. The Scottish Housing Quality Standards are set out in paragraphs 7 to 11, and our compliance with SHQS shows a recovering position from 91.12% at the 31st of March 22 to 94.95% at the 31st of March 23. 359 homes were either exempt or in abeyance, and 245 failed to meet the Scottish Housing Quality Standard, 242 of which failed to meet element 45 associated with electrical installation condition reports, or EICRs. In terms of those 242 properties that failed to meet element 45, this was due to significant challenges in accessing specific homes and social issues. Council has now taken all appropriate action to ensure full compliance with regard to these properties. The 3 remaining properties failed to meet EIS 1. And our energy efficiency standards for social housing are set out in paragraphs 12 to 21. Our position with regard to meeting EIS 1 is that 99.52% of our properties meet the current standard, compared to 99.53% in March 22. With 3 properties that do not meet the standard undergoing improvement work, and the remaining 55 properties all being in abeyance. The Scottish Housing Regulator has advised landlords that the 2025 and 2032 EIS milestones are temporarily on hold, and that collection of data in EIS 2 will be paused until after the conclusion of the Scottish Government's review. The revised standards anticipated to be published during 2023. The interim guidance published by the Scottish Government suggests that landlords should continue with planned investment in energy efficiency measures and look to decarbonise heating systems. The guidance also highlights that since measures are likely to be paid for from rental income, landlords need to be mindful to ensure that investment to reduce fuel poverty does not lead to rent poverty. Properties within the External Envelope Enhancement Programme continue to be looked at using a whole house approach and consider all reasonable energy efficiency measures that can be carried out either during or in conjunction with the work. The impact of external factors in the programme are set out in paragraphs 22 and 23. Increased demand in the construction sector arising from the availability and costs of key construction material and for construction workers in the short to medium term have impacted the procurement, delivery and financial profiling of the investment programme. Significantly increased costs continue to be reported as procurement exercises for key programmes of work conclude. In addition to the demand reported for materials and resources, the increase can also be attributed to economic uncertainty and energy costs. Housing to 2040, set out in paragraphs 24 to 26. The Scottish Government aims to publish a draft standard in 2023 and following legislation in 24-25, phase the introduction from 2025 to 2030. And it's clear that the aims and objectives of Housing to 2040 will undoubtedly bring significant financial challenges for us and for every other local authority around the new housing standard and decarbonisation. That brings us on to planned investment, and the planned investment is set out in paragraphs 27 to 70. The proposed paper continues to focus on the delivery of key investment areas. Paragraphs 34 to 40 identify the approach being proposed for external envelope whole house approach. And as a result of financial pressures in the market and informed by an affordability exercise that has been taken, the proposed programme for external envelope enhancement now supports the inclusion of 400 addresses per year to receive this work, moving replacement towards a life cycle of circa 30 years. As outlined in paragraph 39, Housing Asset Services are working closely with colleagues in economic growth, including the Ayrshire Growth Deal team, on opportunities aligned within the Community Renewable Energy Project core. This work is ongoing in a demonstrator project for core, which builds upon and adds value to the existing Pathfinder project, which Housing Asset Services are delivering in collaboration with the Energy Agency. The main objective is to evaluate and monitor the effectiveness of different approaches to delivering low carbon and energy efficient homes, with the aims of informing future investment in the most suitable approach for each housing archetype in the wider housing stock. Paragraphs 41 to 43 highlight the proposed programme for the installation of energy efficient windows and doors, with 200 homes included per year for the period of the plan, in addition to those being addressed through the whole house approach of the External Envelope Enhancement Programme. It's also proposed that in paragraphs 44 to 47 that we continue to install high efficiency gas heating systems while looking at renewable technologies and opportunities. 800 homes are included per year for the period of the plan. Paragraphs 48 to 52 recommend the acceleration of the programme delivering modern facilities towards a replacement life cycle of circa 18 years, allowing for 680 homes per annum for the period of this plan. This proposed reprofiling will improve the council's stock, help mitigate maintenance requirements and promote increased tenant satisfaction. Roofline inspection condition reports set out in paragraphs 53 to 56. Market research and the procurement activity associated with the delivery has resulted in the appointment of a contractor from November 2023. It's anticipated that year one of the programme will be accelerated to achieve completion by the 31st of March 24. And tenant safety and statutory compliance is set out in paragraphs 57 to 68. And in July 2023, the Scottish Housing Regulator informed landlords that they required to include a clear statement within their annual assurance statement on landlord compliance with the relevant obligation in relation to tenant and resident safety in advance of the introduction of proposed new targets and indicators covering the following activity. So that's asbestos, dampness and mould, electrical safety, fire safety, gas safety, lift safety and water safety. And paragraphs 69 to 70 set out the proposal for renewal of secured door entry systems to 70 properties per year for the period of the plan. Paragraphs 71 to 76 of the paper outline the continued support for owners through the scheme of assistance in relation to the improvement programme, and also the continued aspirations to rationalise our stock through acquisitions and disposals. The implications of the proposed paper are set out in paragraphs 77 to 106. And given the significant requirement and focus in terms of the delivery of the increased numbers of modern facilities and tenant safety, additional resources required within HAS to manage both internal and external partner activity and to carry out necessary audit checks to demonstrate compliance are set out in paragraphs 81 to 86. So in summary, the paper sets out an ambitious programme of investment in our existing homes, with a proposed investment of just under 110 million over the period of the plan. This is despite the significant financial challenges being seen and the uncertain position with regard to future standards. The recommendations are set out in paragraph 2 of the paper, and I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Neil. Again, excellent paper there, and I think just paragraph 16, some of the community benefits there in terms of apprenticeships and work placements, and it's really just shows you, in terms of upskilling particularly our young people and our workforce is really important in delivering some of these projects. It's great to see, but again, another hugely ambitious programme. Jim.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation, Neil. Another comprehensive paper and another huge investment under the current circumstances that we're facing. Just a couple of things to pick up on. The area-based schemes, if you could maybe give me a percentage of homes that have already been completed as far as that external wrapping goes. And a particular interest to me is around about the private homeowner when they're included in that. And them no particularly taking up that offer because you touched on it again, the increasing cost for them. I think if I'm right, you can maybe correct me on this, but it was over a 10-year payback period that they could borrow that money on if they wanted to participate in that for the Scottish Government. But with increased costs for actually completing the external wall insulation for them, I know one point when Kevin Stewart was doing that was moved, it jumped about £1,500 to £3,000. I can only imagine it's increased for them. But with that 10-year payback for the Scottish Government funding, it restricted the amount of people that could participate in that programme. Have we made any moves to try and get that programme extended so more folk could be involved in it and more affordable? Because there's nothing worse when you see the along through the area-based schemes and then you see one house that's not participating, and it could be possibly for that cost. So a question to pick up on there. I think for me, through the paper, what really strikes home to me is the tenant safety. And I think it's all right living in that home, but it must be a safe home to live in. And I think the focus, may I say, in the last couple of years, on about dampness and mould and the innovative technologies that we're now introducing into homes to try and identify that, advise people how to deal with that, is really, really important. One of the things that we don't really take a lot of recognise off is about water safety. It seems to just, pardon pun, flow beneath everything else, but it's really there, and again, it's highlighted. The energy efficiency targets from about East 1 and East 2 are really important, and we see how through East 1 we're nearly there. I think I'll leave that, and maybe the spokesperson for climate change can maybe pick up on that and the impacts to climate on that, and I think he'll come back at it. The whole house approach again is crucial for me. That no disturbing or the disturbance to our tenants when we do their windows and then maybe need to go back and do something else in their house. So I think that disturbance at one time is really, really crucial, and delighted to see we're lifting our heads above head height to look at the roofs and the roof line, run about the gutters and no again, because that's crucial. So thanks very much. Just on that one question, run about how do we or can we encourage more people to participate in that for the private sector, and if I could maybe let the spokesperson on climate change to come in and about the stuff.
Thanks, Jim. Graham?
Okay, I'll touch these before the answer comes in. I just want to talk about the East 1 and the East 2, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. 99.5% of homes are at Band D, EPC rating. It's a good result. East 2, now the minimum EPC Band B rating, or as energy efficient as practically possible within the limits of cost. That kind of really words for me. I've got real concerns about the financial implications of this. Now, ongoing just now is the EcoFlex 4. Now, I'm hearing kind of early indicative costings surrounding bringing older style homes up into a Band C rating. Now, when I extrapolate that across the 11,500 homes we still need to do, we're into hundreds of millions of pounds. Now, for me, we've got constituents here that are struggling to pay their fuel bills. They're really struggling. I've got a constituent reaching out to me for Cessna Avenue in Hereford. Lovely big homes, but God, they're hard to heat and keep the heat in. So for me, I'd like to see an acceleration of the external envelopes, and this accelerating the replacement windows and doors to keep that heat in and help our constituents through the cost of living crisis. Now, I know I've got the targets of 400 and 200 at the moment, but I'd just like us to look at anything we can do to try and accelerate that programme. And I know COVID's delayed us a bit, but I'd really appreciate if we can try and get some help with the constituents and get that programme accelerated. Thanks.
Thanks, Graham. Yeah, I think that's something. Neil, a few questions there.
Yep, thanks, Councillor McMahon. So just to address your question regarding the percentage of properties that have been completed. So we need to make a clear distinction that the external wall insulation and the external envelope programme are separate. So pulling both of those together, we've completed 45% of council stock so far. I can't give you a percentage of other tenure, but what I can tell you is that if we look at solely at the area-based schemes, since inception, they have brought in £16 million worth of work to East Ayrshire. So I'm not, and with regard to the interest-free payment, I'm not aware of any change to that. It still remains at 10 years. Yep.
Okay, thanks for that, Neil. Okay, anyone else? Drew?
Thanks, Chair. Just a wee one for me, Neil. I know you've had your challenges with double glazing companies. I'm just wondering how the new contractors getting on in some of your sites.
Thanks very much, Councillor Filson. We actually have two different double glazing contractors right now. One called Walker Profiles, who are delivering the 200 addresses that are out with the whole house approach, and they are performing reasonably well, don't have any issues with them. The whole house approach with the external envelope has a subcontractor double glazing contractor installing within that, and they have definitely, I'm sure you've been aware, been giving us some issues, especially in the Drongan area, but we are working really hard to address them. We are continually having progress meetings and picking up any issues.
That's fine, Neil. Thanks.
Thanks. Eddie?
Just a mention, can people be aware that we're in public session and be aware around any commercial confidentiality and any discussions that we have here?
Okay, Eddie, I was looking at a few auction sites for some buybacks, so I'll just maybe keep them private. Eddie, Maureen.
Thanks very much. And again, thank you for this paper. In terms of the external cladding that we've had, it occurs to me that when we're looking at streets and comments that have been made in relation to that, perhaps we have to look at, these are often private properties that are the stick-out thumbs in a street that you're referring to. And of course, private properties do change ownership over time. So perhaps when the offer to envelope was made, there has subsequently been a change in ownership. So perhaps that's something that we could look at again, as to, given that our overall aim here is tackling fuel poverty overall across East Ayrshire in totality. So perhaps how we actually are able to go back again and make subsequent offers where there has been change of ownership might be something that is worth exploring going forward. Thank you. I'm glad for the inclusion. I have had a great deal to say at various points in relation to core. I'm very glad that we have got to a more settled position on what core is actually there to do. And my understanding is that we are clear now where there are lots of new technologies available. And what we are interested in is looking at different packages of actually grouping those together and what are actually the most appropriate groupings together for the type of stock that we actually have on East Ayrshire to deliver the very best results. So I think that's really an interesting way for us to move forward and have a very particular impact here on East Ayrshire, and that's certainly something that has to be welcomed. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Yeah, agree there. Anyone else? Okay, can we go into recommendations? Can we agree on recommendations? Okay, thanks, and thanks, Neil. Now on to Dawn Graham, who's going to present the East Ayrshire Strategic Housing Investment Plan, the SHIP. Dawn.
Thank you. Good morning, members. The East Ayrshire Strategic Housing Investment Plan 2024 to 2029, known as the SHIP, is a 5-year rolling plan that sets out the affordable housing supply programme, which is aligned with the priorities and outcomes set out in the Council's local housing strategy, as noted in paragraph 3 of the report. The recommendations relating to the SHIP proposals are set out in paragraph 2 of the report, the details of which are set out in paragraph 3 through to 84. Since 2010 and 11, the Council has achieved 585 completions, representing 4.8% of the Council's current housing stock. So taking you through the report, paragraph 9 provides an update on sites completed since last year's Affordable Housing Supply Programme was presented to Cabinet. Completions by Council and Registered Social Landlord RSL partners have been achieved at Bellevue Gardens in Kilmarnock, Witch Road in Kilmarnock, Whole House Road in Kilmarnock, Irvine Road, Kilmores and Campbelltown Drive in Kilmarnock, and that's totaled 104 homes. Paragraphs 11 to 13 note, as at September 2023, 8 adult supported, 42 older ambulant and 6 wheelchair accessible properties have been completed since the wheelchair accessible housing target was introduced in August 2020. An additional 14 wheelchair accessible homes will be delivered through developments currently underway at Kilmarnock Road in Mauchline and Kennedy Drive in Kilmarnock. Paragraphs 15 to 16 of the report provide a breakdown of the proposed community benefits across each of the Council's live and recently completed sites being delivered in partnership with CCG Scotland Limited. As noted in paragraphs 17 to 16, the Council's new build programme is complemented by the open market acquisition scheme. In this regard, an allowance is made for the Council to acquire circa 30 properties each year in addition to the new build programme. Paragraphs 20 to 24 provide an overview of the Affordable Housing Supply Programme process and procedure update, alongside details of the grant award agreement which is now in place with the Scottish Government. In February 2023, the Scottish Government agreed to a sliding scale grant award of £35,000 to £50,000 relative to the property values ranging from up to £80,000 to over £100,000. Details of the funding allocation are noted in Table 1 and paragraph 22 of the report. Paragraphs 25 to 26 highlight the Scottish Government's plans to support a proposed national acquisition plan. Once approved, it's anticipated the plan will enable social landlords to purchase properties from private owners, builders and landlords. The Scottish Government has advised further guidance on how this will work in practice is under development and will be communicated in due course through government guidance updates. Paragraphs 27 to 28 provide an outline of this year's affordable housing supply programme and other Scottish Government grant funded initiatives. Moving on to paragraphs 29 to 32. They confirm the Scottish Government's allocated resource planning assumptions for East Ayrshire, which cover the period 2024 to 2029. Paragraphs 33 to 37 provide an overview of affordability in terms of cost increases that continue to be reported and experienced across the sector, impacting the affordability and deliverability of housing proposals for all social landlords. As Strategic Housing Authority, the Council has modelled scenarios to determine how best to continue to deliver future-proof programmes. This modelling has informed proposed site deletions that are set out in Table 4 at paragraph 39. Those include the previously approved sites at Mason Avenue and Castle Street in New Cumnock. Continuing to promote the new build affordable housing programme at the scale and the pace previously approved would be untenable in terms of forecast capital costs, ongoing borrowing impacts, and most importantly, the anticipated on-cost to tenants' rents. Paragraphs 41 through to 44 summarise the SHIP 2024 to 29 proposals. They note a potential capacity to deliver up to 762 new, converted and acquired homes in East Ayrshire over the 5-year period. Paragraph 43 within confirms the proposed SHIP was submitted to the Scottish Government by the due deadline, subject to Cabinet approval, as set out in Appendices 1 and 2 of the report. The Local Development Plan's Affordable Housing Policy update is set out across paragraphs 45 through to 55. The members will note that the Housing Service will continue to liaise with the development and planning colleagues to determine the number and type of homes to be delivered, where applicable, and the anticipated timescales for developments on all applicable affordable housing sites. Decisions around on-site or off-site contributions and the provision of commuted sums is determined by the Future Homes Project Board relative to the ongoing housing asset management framework and the outcomes of the housing need and demand assessment. Paragraph 56 notes the Council is committed to delivering housing opportunities as part of its wider strategic aspiration to promote regeneration of East Ayrshire's town centres while supporting the creation of 20-minute neighbourhoods. As far as possible, the SHIP programme has been developed taking account of the implications which have been noted within paragraphs 57 through to 84. To conclude, ongoing council-led works, together with site starts and proposed developments, will come forward at Kilmarnock Road and Mauchline, Kennedy Drive and Kilmarnock, through refurbishment of Clinchard Place in Galston, and at Dalgleish Avenue and Cumnock. That will provide a total of 120 new homes. As set out in Appendices 2 and 3, we anticipate an allocation of circa £70 million in grant funding from the Scottish Government and look to deliver the indicative 762 homes over the next 5 years. This will be achieved through the delivery of the proposed council and RSL-led new build developments and property acquisitions. As noted, the recommendations are set out in paragraph 2 of the report, and I would welcome any questions.
Thanks, Dawn. Any questions? Any, Jim?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks again, Dawn, for the presentation. The buyback scheme. I'm just wondering. I don't know whether it's feasible or not. I know we'll buy back the last in block. Have we considered approaching where we have a 2 and 2 and there's one comes up for sale for future? Looking at that, because I mean, if we get by and have then 3, then that's only one we're looking for. And given the scale of grant, 35 to 50, or potential gains in the future. I know that we don't have total control during that period, but it's certainly something I think we're looking forward to. And I don't know whether if I could maybe put the head of housing on the spot with this. And I mean, I see that 762 houses over a 5-year period. It's great. It's fantastic, and I think the leader touched on it. But the debate in the Parliament to run about the housing emergency. If we had utopia, how many houses would we perhaps need that could lift everybody in East Ayrshire? Out of that, and perhaps just a month to wait in a house, 40 days to wait in a house. 762 is great over the 5 year, but if we could solve that, just how many houses would we need?
That's your Blair, can you answer that one?
Through you, Chair. In terms of the first question round about buybacks, we look to acquire now. Our initial strategy was round about and focused on last in block or last remaining owner, etc. So we have now recently extended that, whereby we're looking to take a majority share in blocks. So I can give some assurances that we're doing that. In terms of the Utopia position, what I can confirm is that we have just short of 4,000 applicants on our housing lists, all with a housing need. So if that would give you some context of what the properties we would require to satisfy that whole need as it currently stands, but with emerging applications of circa between 12 and 1,500 a year, that gives you some of the context in terms of the demand we're experiencing. Thanks.
Thanks. What, Jim?
So just having that majority share, then what is the potential to buy back even the other one if one's for sale and making an offer for the other one with the tenant still in it?
Through you, Chair. At this moment in time, the guidance that we receive from the Scottish Government is that we must secure vacant possession of properties. However, we are aware recently that there are other examples operating in Scotland which that is not the case. We wrote to the Scottish Government just this week, setting out our position and ask of the Government is in that they will allow us to secure or acquire properties with people still in situ. So we await the response from the Scottish Government, and I can confirm to members that I'll pick it up as part of our standard programming meetings with the Scottish Government as well. I believe it has a huge part to play and another tool in a toolbox in addressing some of these pressures we've already spoke about this morning. Thanks.
Thanks, Blair. Eddie, do you want to come in?
I think when we get into these discussions and we talk about the level of investment in housing, which is obviously a long-term investment for the council, one of the things we really need to understand is the demography going forward. And the CMT know how much I talk about this recently. I've been really struck by some of the figures coming from the Scottish Fiscal Commission that's actually looking forward up to 50 years about where we could be in, Scotland, and particularly the west of Scotland, talking about depopulation, and then getting into East Ayrshire in terms of where we are. So what our community looks like going forward, and particularly when we're talking about investing over a 40-year period, we need to be clear we're looking forward, and we have that responsibility for people who are still paying for this 40 years hence. And the figures for us would look as though our overall population will reduce by about 7% over that period. We will see an increase in the numbers of people who are over 65. We will see a decrease in our numbers of young people, maybe by up to 30% in terms of the 2 to 16-year-olds over that period of time, and a reduction in the number of our working age population as well. So actually, when we look forward to strategic investments over a longer period, we have to be mindful of, what will the shape of our population be when we look forward to actually going to utilise these assets, and who's going to be paying for it in that period of time there. So if our working age population, etc., is going down as well. So some of the discussions that we have around strategic investment, I suppose it's particularly around our housing investment and around our capital programme, has to be looking that far in advance. And actually, it's something I've been really struck by, and I know it's something that the team have been considering. How do we bring this into the whole discussion with members as well, for us to look forward? We've been looking forward to some more detail coming from the census, but it's not only the census, the work of the Scottish Fiscal Commission, and this is really, really important to us. And some of the discussions we're having here are starting to get into that territory, are about making sure we take that responsibility, appropriate for the next 40 years, for our populations coming.
That's which if you want to really affect changes, look at proper levelling up money. If you're really talking about redressing some of the population decline in the west and the southwest, is look at transport infrastructure and things like the Belfield interchange. Because we know with the investment into the M77 and the rail, and that's one way to really stem the decline of depopulation. and that's where government can take a part when they're looking to divest some of the money that we're going to invest in HS2. I'll just put that out there, but that's where we address some of these issues, and as government needs to take action. We can only do what we can here, but it's a fair comment. Looking at the demography, and it's going to be an older and more a community that needs more healthcare, etc., and people to support that. Claire.
Thank you for the paper, first of all, and thank you for the comments, Eddie. I think we should be getting reminded of the demographics constantly. However, I just wanted some further information. It was something I raised the other day, and it's I don't understand why there is a difference to start with, but we're talking about investing in our future. The RSL still get an advantage, I believe, in the money they receive from the government as opposed to what we do. And I don't think that's fair, and I just wonder what's been done to address that as we are investing in the future. Thank you.
Blair.
Through you, Chair. Yeah, so there is still a disparity in the grant level in which we receive between local authorities and registered social landlords in Scotland. In terms of the work, there has been a lobbying group through the Chief Housing Officer group in Scotland, ALACHO, through to COSLA to try and influence changes in terms of grant level and subsidy that we receive. So it is an ongoing conversation and challenge round about that, which would be much needed in terms of just trying to address some of the conversations again we've had this morning. So we recognise the disparity, and we are very clear on our view is that that must change. Thank you.
Maureen, yeah.
Of course, all these things are so interesting because we then go back into almost some of the mists of time in terms of housing stock transfer and the emergence of RSLs and what the lobbying ability is in relation to RSLs across Scotland as a whole as a result of that has created as an opportunity, one which of course we haven't taken up within East Ayrshire. But again, I think, when we look at what our reality here is within East Ayrshire, and we know that what we have seen in terms of 22-23 is 26% less houses built, whether it's RSLs or councils across Scotland. When we look at our table 4, and we certainly see that it's the RSLs who are actually not managing to actually deliver within this time scale that we've got, sites actually being omitted from their plans. I think we have to take account of that. We know that we've got 762, and that's good and positive. It's not the aspirational figure that we had. And I think we have to be realistic about that. We're not at 26% in terms of, but we are, heading in a direction of travel, which, as Blair has already explained to us, does not sit well, given that we have 4,000 people currently on our waiting list, and with that increasing 1,200 to 1,500 a year. So I think it does emphasise the point. There is a housing emergency here. And again, it's really helpful to have the Chief Executive keep coming back to us with what the stats are, because it's not just about investing, it's investing in the right things and it's investing in the right places going forward, what the projections actually are in terms of demography. So that's something that's really important. But when we're considering the broad demographics, I think that there will be interesting census figures coming through about how many Scots are actually choosing a life where they choose to live alone, which is of course putting further impacts and demands on our housing stock. So again, I think these are things that we need to take account of. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thanks for that. And now we're going to Chris, who has got the East Ayrshire Local Housing Strategy Annual Update. Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. The Local Housing Strategy is a 5-year document and received Cabinet approval in November 2019. Every year we provide an update on the action plan in order to monitor progress and also identify challenges. The LHS vision and 4 core outcomes remain unchanged over the 5-year period, but a reminder of these are contained within the update. An important part of the LHS annual review is highlighting the achievements over the last 12 months. These are contained within the report, but some examples are as follows. The importance of the ongoing community and housing support from the various teams within housing and vibrant communities, resulting in high levels of tenancy sustainment. The training and ongoing support to private landlords from the homeowners team. The quality of homes in the private sector continuing to be improved through the Scheme of Assistance and Energy Efficiency Scotland area-based schemes. A reduction in the average number of days spent in temporary accommodation and 100% sustainment across the Housing First programme, which you'll hear more about through the RRTP paper. Enabling and supporting people to live independently in their own communities or community settings through the development of new homes for older ambulant disabled residents, such as the Witch Road development. Also the continuing work of the Adaptations Programme and Care and Repair Service, both of which provide physical assistance in order to enable people to stay in their own homes and communities. Housing Services' continued contribution to the Council's climate change strategy, local heat and energy efficiency strategy and community renewable energy project. Lastly, our financial inclusion team and universal credit support team continue to work tirelessly to maximise the income of their clients. In relation to the action plan contained within the strategy, assessment of performance uses a traffic light scoring system. Over the period 22-23, the number of actions within the green status has increased from 62 to 69. This shows a positive direction of travel in relation to the actions within the LHS and over the duration of the strategy. The final LHS update will be provided to elected members in November 2024, concluding the final year of the current strategy and celebrating the achievements over the previous 5-year period. This will be followed in 2025 by an updated local housing strategy informed by a new housing need and demand assessment and also incorporating new housing legislation such as Housing to 2040 and a new deal for tenants rented sector strategy. The recommendations for the local housing strategy annual update are contained within paragraph 2 of the Cabinet paper. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Chris. Before I go to Chris's recommendations, it was remiss of me for the previous paper to agree. We didn't agree the recommendations on page 35. That was from Don's paper. That was the East Ayrshire SHIP. Can we agree them? Okay. Thanks. So we'll go back to Chris's paper. Sorry about that. And would you have any questions for Chris? Okay. Can we therefore go to the recommendations in Chris's paper? That's on page 76. And can we agree them? Okay. Go to the next paper, which is Lisa. She's the Rapid Rehousing Transition Plan 2019-24 Progress Report. Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. This report provides an annual update on the Council's Rapid Rehousing Transition Plan Year 4 actions in 22-23, with recommendations noted at paragraph 2. Background information in relation to the RRTP is set out at paragraphs 3 to 8, and members will be aware of the Homelessness and Rough Sleeping Action Group recommendation of 2017 for a transition to a housing first and rapid rehousing approach, and all local authorities were required to develop and submit an RRTP to the Scottish Government as one solution to end homelessness in Scotland over a 5-year planned and costed phase from 2019 to 2024. This report provides an overview of progress made to date on the actions contained within Year 4, 22-23 of the RRTP and planned implementation of activities in Year 5, 23-24, and enables measurement of progress, achievement against ambitions, and provides a focus for operational activity across community planning partners. There is focus throughout the plan on the prevention of homelessness through support for all vulnerable households with diverse needs. Paragraphs 9 to 12 provide an update on the progress made throughout 22-23 in reducing homelessness, early intervention and prevention work and continued partnership working. Key achievements throughout 22-23 include a 100% sustainment rate for housing first tenancies created, the service-wide rollout of nationally accredited NHS trauma training, year-on-year improvement of overall tenancy sustainment, the reopening of St Andrews Court and the implementation of the Reconnect Tenancy Sustainment Pilot. Paragraph 11 discusses the annual monitoring report, an updated RRTP Action Plan 2019-24, which was submitted to the Rapid Rehousing and Local Engagement Team at the Scottish Government on the 25th of August 2023. The reporting format differed from previous years, with a focus on capturing qualitative data via case studies, and feedback in the submission is yet to be received. Performance in relation to the actions contained within the RRTP is detailed at paragraph 12. This is measured using a traffic light scoring system. The annual review shows good progression within most areas of the plan with no red actions. Further detail is contained within the annual review Appendix 1 and the updated plan Appendix 2. Implications are set out at paragraphs 13 to 20. The RRTP was produced in line with the guidance issued by the Scottish Government within the Ending Homelessness Together Action Plan. Prevention activities within the RRTP are prioritised in connection with the HL1 homelessness dataset to ensure a targeted response to homelessness prevention. The RRTP is reviewed on an annual basis and any adjustments made accordingly to prioritise local need. The RRTP promotes equality, diversity and inclusiveness, and the Council will continue to work with all partners to tackle the root causes of inequalities to build a fair and inclusive East Ayrshire. A full equality impact assessment was carried out as part of the development of the RRTP. This is the final year of Scottish Government RRTP funding, which ends at the 31st of March 2024 and concludes the 5-year life cycle of the RRTP. Withdrawal of funding beyond this will jeopardise current progress made, with no capacity within housing services to absorb the prevention work streams. Over the 5-year period, on average, funding has been received to the value of £150,000 per annum. East Ayrshire Council's monitoring report submission includes an ask of the Scottish Government that RRTPs are extended for an additional 5 years for ambitions within the RRTP to be fully achieved. To conclude, the RRTP and associated funding created capacity to focus on homeless prevention activities which otherwise may have not been achievable. Whilst the ability to fully achieve the ambition set out within the RRTP has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and cost of living crisis, the RRTP enhanced prevention, early intervention and partnership opportunities to address vulnerabilities and prevent homelessness. Recommendations are noted at paragraph 2. That concludes the report, Chair, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lisa. Good to see some progress there, and great to see some of the work that's going on right across the authority, including St Andrews Court. There's quite a transformation that there, and great to see the focus on trauma-informed work with some of the people that present themselves as homeless, and that's great to see. Members, any other comments, Jim?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for the paper. I think Dougie touched on what was going to be Morton remarks around about St Andrews Court and the massive improvement, even after back of my visit again. Gary, thank you again for those replacement windows there. I think it was crucial that we treat St Andrews Court the same way as every other residential property we do there. So the windows that were unsightly, glad to see they have been replaced. I think of being trauma-informed, I think the layout in St Andrews Court now, with all the signs and the warnings around about it, is much more pleasant. It's a more homely atmosphere in the social area and in the kitchens as well, and in the living space area. I touched on this earlier around about sustainment, and I think the emphasis and really how important that this funding does continue. It might only be £150,000 a year, but for sustainability for tenants, the most vulnerable tenants, the most, you could describe them as chaotic tenants at the time, I think it's crucial for them to sustain that tenancy through that housing first model and that wraparound support that goes with it along there. For me, it's crucial that that does continue. I know, is it 9? It would be 9. I'd be looking to extend that to increase sustainability in homes, if we could do that. And also look, I mean, I don't know where it currently sits, for a kind of step down process away at a particular stage during that process. I suppose every individual will be assessed independently of that, but it's really important for me that that funding is sustainable and it carries forward for another 5 years.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, anyone else? Okay, can we go to recommendations, page 117? Okay, and the next paper is the Factoring Service Annual Update, and that's from Helen Merriman. Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members and colleagues. This is the annual update on the factoring service, and the purpose of the report is to review the property factoring management fees and homeowners maintenance plan fees charged by the factoring service. Also to ensure that the Council meets its obligations in line with relevant legislation and associated Scottish Government guidance, and also to provide performance information with regard to the factoring service. The recommendations are set out in paragraph 2 of the report, the details of which are contained in paragraphs 3 to 21. Paragraphs 3 to 8 provide the background and overview of the service for members. The Council factors 1,502 properties in 232 mixed tenure blocks, of which 888 are in Council ownership and 614 are private properties. These factored properties also include a small number of commercial properties, some of which have been retained by the Council and are leased or vacant, and some of which are privately owned. Shortly after the factoring service was established, the Council experienced high levels of complaints regarding emergency repairs to common entry doors, and it was agreed that the Council would provide a new service to the private owners called the Homeowners Maintenance Plan, details of which are at Appendix 1. For a one-off annual fee to homeowners, the plan covers all emergency repairs to the door entry system and entry lights. Paragraphs 9 to 12 provide information in relation to the performance of the factoring service. You will note that in the year 2022-23, the service issued invoices to homeowners for services and common work totalling £186,470.70, with over £163,000 being collected. Ongoing payments are in place, and where required, recovery is sought by colleagues within the finance and recovery sections. The factoring service has agreed to inspect each factored mixed tenure block annually, and paragraph 10 states that the service carried out 232 annual full block inspections. The service also carried out 992 repair jobs on factored properties during the last financial year. With regard to the financial information of the Homeowners Maintenance Plan, at paragraph 13, there was a small deficit in this service and should be considered alongside the reduced level of inquiries received by both council officers and elected members, should the maintenance plan not be in place. It is recognised that the current cost of living crisis is affecting all households, and paragraph 15 recommends that we should limit the increases in the management fees for 23-24 in line with any agreed rent increase. This increase would ensure that the cost to provide the service to homeowners is increased whilst keeping the amount as small as possible to maintain the service. It is therefore recommended that the factoring management fee increases from £73.38, excluding VAT, to align with any improved increase in council house rents. It is our recommendation that the Homeowners Maintenance Plan, as detailed in paragraphs 17 to 20, also increases to ensure the service does not operate at a deficit. As you will see from Table 5, based on the amount of repairs not charged to homeowners on the maintenance plan in the last financial year, in order to recover any deficit, the Council would require to apply a 50.8% increase on this fee. It is therefore proposed to increase the annual cost of the maintenance plan by 25% in year 1, which equates to an increase of £3.90 annually, bringing the cost of the plan to £19.50. It is proposed to review the increase in year 2 in line with inflationary pressures, and at this stage propose a further 25.8% increase in year 2, which equates to an increase of £5.03, with the plan costing £24.53 per annum. Work continues to encourage homeowners to take on the maintenance plan, and this includes targeted communication to all homeowners and private landlords in our factor blocks on the benefits of taking out the plan. Paragraph 21 states that the Property Factors Scotland Act of 2011 is now included in the Council's scheme of delegation. East Ayrshire's Federation of Tenants and Residents have worked closely with the factoring service since inception to review processes and procedures over the years, and we are keen for this work to continue. Further review and a proposed scrutiny exercise is planned before the end of this financial year. Implications are set out at paragraphs 23 through to 31. Working with homeowners to ensure that mixed tenure buildings are maintained provides a better and safer environment for the community to reside in. And the provision of the factoring service and maintaining mixed tenure tenant blocks also links in with the Safer Communities Delivery Plan. Members will note that the Council must adhere to the statutory obligations set down in the Property Factors Scotland Act and require it adheres to Scottish Government guidance on recovery of homeowners' shares. Increasing the management fee and homeowners' maintenance plan fee for 2024-25 will help to ensure that the Council can continue to provide the factoring service effectively. Failure to increase the management and service fees would result in the Council bearing an increased cost to provide the factoring service to private homeowners. It is therefore essential that these fees be increased to ensure that the Council is not in contravention of the Scottish Government's guidance on the use of the Housing Revenue Account in the provision of services to private homeowners. The Council will continue to utilise local contractors, and the factoring service currently utilises a maintenance framework contract which commits to involving local SMEs, employee-owned businesses, social enterprises, cooperatives and community-owned enterprises within local supply chains. That concludes my report, and I'd welcome any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Helen. Members, any questions? Maureen?
It's just to, again, Helen, I'm sure when you come back to us in terms of year 2, you'll be able to give us any impacts on what the uptake figures have been, and that will then give us the opportunity to be informed as to whether or not we approve what is proposed for year 2. So I think that's a very helpful way to proceed. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Maureen. No, I would agree with that. I know that the Tenants and Residents Federation have been working pretty hard on this issue as well. Okay, John?
Yeah, just on that, and again, thankful for the work. So it's just comment, and it's thankful work again for the Tenants and Residents Federation. And I did forget, I should have thanked them at the very outset as well, because the amount of work that they're putting in, some of the decisions that's been taken with the team right across housing is really important as the part of the consultation. In fact, I was privileged to be with them a couple of weeks ago when they picked up a Tara Award up at Glasgow for Campbell Street. So just it's my thanks for them overall towards the housing papers, but specifically on this one.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, anyone else? Okay, thanks, Helen. Can we agree recommendations on page 149? Okay, and the final paper, that's Wendy Johnson. Wendy, over to you. Resettlement.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members and wider colleagues. The purpose of this report is to update Cabinet on resettlement activity across the authority and to seek approval to resettle a further 100 individuals through UK resettlement schemes over the next 5 years. Members will be aware there has been significant resettlement activity since the last report, which was presented to Cabinet in August 2021. This is due to the Ukraine-Russia conflict and the UK Government Homes for Ukraine scheme, which also incorporated the Scottish Government Super Sponsor scheme. The presentation of this report is timely as consultation on the cap and the number of entrants arriving in the UK via safe and legal routes for humanitarian purposes has just been launched by the Home Office. The Illegal Migration Act places a duty on the Home Secretary to set a cap on numbers, and consultation opened on the 20th of October and will run until the 12th of December. Background details are set out in paragraphs 3 to 26 of the report. Paragraphs 11 to 14 highlights the work undertaken in respect of accommodation and support in respect of the Ukrainian crisis, as we now move from that crisis response mode to a more business as usual resettlement model. Members will note within paragraph 12 the Ayrshire-wide collaboration through the Ayrshire Local Resilience Partnership, and this joint working will continue with oversight for all resettlement cohorts. Members will specifically note at paragraph 14 that there are now over 200 Ukrainian individuals currently resettled and supported across our communities. Paragraph 15 provides details of the number of families resettled in East Ayrshire through Syrian and Afghan schemes since 2015. And I would particularly want to highlight that only 2 of those families have moved on from East Ayrshire, which is testament to the outstanding work of colleagues across the board in welcoming and integrating families through the resettlement scheme on their journey so far. Paragraph 16 to 23 details information around asylum dispersal and unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. And I would highlight the joint working between Housing and the Health and Social Care Partnership with regard to accommodation options for the mandated arrival of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. Members, paragraphs 27 to 29 outlines a consultation exercise currently being undertaken by the Home Office that I referred to earlier, and details the ask of Cabinet with regards to the proposed future resettlement numbers, noting that these numbers do not include UASC or asylum seekers, only those being resettled directly through UK resettlement schemes. It's proposed that the numbers identified would be resettled incrementally and proportionally over the 5-year period, with year 1 being 24-25. An operational subgroup has been established and close working between services will continue. It's also remitted within the report to update Cabinet on an annual basis, which provides the opportunity to further review these numbers if required. Members, I would also add that there's clearly an emerging picture in Palestine and Israel, and the UK Government have already laid emergency legislation exempting UK citizens residing in the region prior to the 7th of October from having to meet the habitual residence test before they're able to access benefits, including housing and homelessness assistance. Members, I can confirm that if there are any fundamental changes to UK policy, then we will revert back to Cabinet earlier in the planned annual update. The report recognises that whilst the Council remains committed to supporting UK Government resettlement schemes, the pressures across services with regard to both housing supply and financial pressures are acknowledged, and the resettlement lead will work strategically and collaboratively across all partners to identify and try to mitigate areas of pressure and risk within our control where possible. Through you, Chair, I'll hand over to Blair before taking any questions, who will take you through the recommendations that's contained within the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. Blair.
Thank you, Wendy, and through you, Chair. Members, I will conclude the report this morning by proposing the recommendations as set out at paragraph 2, noting that at Roman numeral 3, that it includes a recommendation to extend a post that would not be appropriate for my colleague taking us through the report this morning to make, given there is a direct impact on any decision taken by members this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Blair, that's helpful, yeah. Claire.
I'd like to thank Wendy for that report. It's an excellent report and it's good to see the work that we're doing. Wendy, you said that we would be dealing with these people hopefully incrementally and proportionally, but and in paragraph 2 in the recommendations it says 100 individuals over the next 5 years, but that's not a nice neat 20 a year, I'd imagine. And also with what we're looking at in Palestine and the information that you've given us there, I could imagine that that figure will change, and I just hope that we have the capacity to deal with any other families or people that come our way. But thank you, an excellent report.
Thanks, yeah. I think we'll monitor events as they happen, as outlined in the report, and if there's any changes, we'll keep all members up to date, as Wendy does, in terms of changing situations that are emerging and any other emerging issues. Okay, Jim.
Yeah, just one comment. Again, thank you, Wendy, for the paper. And I think it's really a testament to yourself and the rest of the team that we've only lost 2 within East Ayrshire. I had the pleasure, like many other elected members, in visiting the event at the Howard Centre, and we saw how that has affected each and every family, both on the way they're settling into their new communities and on education. So the wider impacts that's having on the students that have achieved, the families that have achieved, and how testament to the team that have set it in well in East Ayrshire. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Jim. Anyone else? Okay, can we go to those recommendations? Page 164. Can we agree? Okay, thank you. I think that's us. Thank all the housing team for an excellent suite of reports. We look forward to the work going ahead. Thanks very much. Maybe just there's one further item. Going to move exclusion press and public first.